All right, at this juncture, I'm going to turn it over to Lindsey St. Arnold Bell from the Near West Side Partners. You all have been hearing all day about activities that are underway in Washington Park, and these are the folks that are on the front lines engaging in exciting ways with the community in the park, Urban Ecology Center, the Children's Services, as well as Washington Park Wednesdays. So we will hear about activities underway and think for the future in ways to engage with the park. So we'll turn it over. Thanks.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Lindsey St. Arnold Bell. I am the Executive Director of Near West Side Partners. We are a community and economic development organization that works in the 7 neighborhoods just south of Valete Street. So we are neighbors to Washington Park. And these are really exciting times in Washington Park. So right now we've heard about the nascent Washington Park Friends Group. There's the process to reimagine Wisconsin 175, which is along the western border of Washington Park, the new Olmsted Way, and a new Urban Ecology Center. And during this panel, we want to explore some of the ways that we're currently engaging with the community and how we can better enlist local involvement in our efforts. So as I mentioned, Near West Side Partners is located just to the south of Washington Park, and we're focused on collaborative efforts to improve housing, commercial corridor development, community health and safety. And parks, like Washington Park, are a great example of where these efforts intersect to create vibrant communities and safe, stable neighborhoods. And today, we are joined by 3 very talented panelists who are engaging with neighbors in and around the park, creating new opportunities to experience Washington Park, and to help create a shared vision for its future. So I'm going to start at the end of the table with Mr. Terry Evans. Terry, can you tell us a little bit about the Urban Ecology Center and the work you're leading there?
Great. All right. I'm Terry Evans. I'm the branch director at the Urban Ecology Center located right here in wonderful Washington Park. I think I heard somebody say it with the earlier panel, was we're definitely trying to connect people to each other and to nature, and using Washington Park and its wonderful resources to do that. We have a few different things that we do. We do restoration. Right now, we are working our way up to 20 acres of restoration within Washington Park. Right now, we have about 10 acres that we're restoring, bringing it back to its natural areas. So we have a land stewardship team that's out there every day. And as they do the tour, you'll probably see that group of land stewards that are out in the park. And definitely feel free to ask them any questions regarding the restoration work that you may see them doing. They're open and they know that you all will be out there in the park. Then we have our environmental education program. Right now, we work with about 15 schools, several different classrooms within those schools where we pick the kids up and we bring them into Washington Park. So we do an hour of learning, and then they get to go out into the biggest classroom of all, which is the 134 acres of Washington Park, which is exciting. With our expansion of our building, we're going to increase going from working with 15 schools to working with over 30 schools. So you're talking about roughly, it's somewhere over 5,000 kids that we're going to work with, that we're bringing into Washington Park to have that experience. Also, we do research in community science. Today's a lot of stuff's been happening today. Today we had bird banding. So when we first came into Washington Park, there was probably roughly about 10 different species of birds that were coming through Washington Park on a regular basis. And I'm gonna say this, because of the work that we've been doing, the work that County Parks been doing, and other organizations have been doing, that number of bird species has grown to over 50 different species of birds that come through Washington Park. And that's a collaborative effort, and I really want to applaud that from all the organizations that are working to do that. We also do bat monitoring, we do monarch surveys, we do surveys, and we have a wonderful, beautiful orchard at the corner of Washington Park at the northeast corner of Washington Park. So if you get a chance, you'll see our little mini orchard, and that's something that the community uses when the trees are bearing fruit. It's amazing. It's a beautiful thing to see families coming out with their baskets to gather fruit. Oh, okay, I didn't know I had a card. Tell me that. Okay. And then we do engagement. So we work a lot with United Methodist Children's Services and Adrian and her team to go out into the neighborhoods and talk to residents, which is really a difficult thing. It's a rewarding thing as well, because sometimes you get instant rewards of people stopping by the center and having those experiences. So we're at a point where organizationally, where we're trying to see how and what is the best way to do engagement. How do we get more people into the park? Because the park is a type of therapy, and the different resources that are provided in the park, and how do we get people to use those? And then last, we have our volunteering program. So we have thousands of volunteers that volunteer thousands of hours on helping with land restoration. They help with our events. We hold autumn celebration. We do different events that brings the community in. We partner with law enforcement on different events. So we do have a big volunteer base that we use as well.
Thank you, Terry. I love that park is a kind of therapy. It's so thoughtful. So Adrian Spencer, you've been with United Methodist Children's Services of Wisconsin for some time, and UMCS has been an active presence in the Washington Park neighborhood for many years. Can you talk a bit about the work you're leading with residents and how you're engaging them with the park?
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Adrian Spencer. I've been with United Methodist for a little bit over a year now, while United Methodist Children's Services has been serving here in the Washington Park neighborhood for 60 years. So if you all are free tomorrow evening, join us for our open house, and you can learn a lot more about the work that we're doing. What I have been charged with leading here in the Washington Park neighborhood is the overarching strategic approach to outreach in the Washington Park neighborhood, which rides from Valise Street here on our south over to Monarchy over on the north side, and 27th Street on the east and here behind the park. And our goal is really to help build that connectedness and build relationships with residents, partners, businesses, and nonprofit organizations within the Washington Park neighborhood. So a lot of that work manifests itself in several different ways. We're out doing traditional grassroots organizing, knocking on doors, talking with residents, trying to understand from them like what they see as not only the issues in the neighborhood, but also the solutions. Because when you've lived in a certain place for a while, you have seen things occur and you have some sort of ideal of how to remedy that, right? But sometimes resources may not be available to help you, or the support may not be there to help you come to those conclusions. So we serve residents in that way. We also do a number of events that are driven by the residents. So when folks are in our monthly meetings that we hold to connect residents with resources from partners and to get informed about what's happening in the community, they also then hang back and they talk to us about, hey, it would be really wonderful if, or why don't we do this, or why aren't we doing that? And those are really the catalyst for how we come up with what type of initiatives, programs, and events that we program here in the Washington Park neighborhood led by our residents. I would also say connecting folks to resources, working on housing and safety here in the park are key components to how UMCS has engaged residents here in the Washington Park neighborhood. And we're really happy to be a partner with many of the folks that we've talked about here today, like Washington Park Partners, UEC, Friends of the People of the Park, is it People Park? Park People? Park people, and serving at Washington Park Wednesdays, where we have an opportunity to engage with residents every week in the summer in a really fun and engaging way, and really helping to introduce more families that do live on the north and the east side of the park to be a part of that wonderful experience.
Thank you. And thank you for that segue. Melissa Muller, the Washington Park neighbors have done a great job curating the Washington Park Wednesday concert series. Can you tell us about what you do and how you engage with the community with these events?
Well, I feel like you all have heard about what we do. But for those of you who are not from here, or maybe this is your first time in Washington Park, we curate, my group curates an 8-week concert series in the park in the summer. And that's what we do now. But 10 years ago, we were just a small concert series like in any park in the city, funded by the Milwaukee County Parks, and driven by a couple of very passionate neighbors. And those passionate neighbors had limited resources. And we collectively took the time to try and build our resources through community. So we would not be where we are if it wasn't for our community. None of us take a paycheck. None of us give more than what we are capable of giving. It's a passion project for many. So we've grown from 3 people sitting at UMCS when it was Washington Park Partners to a committee of about 25 people, and now a board of solidly 7 people, Washington Park Neighbors being the driver behind Washington Park Wednesdays, which is confusing. Washington Park Neighbors, Friends of Washington Park, and Washington Park Wednesdays. It's all collectively good stuff that's going on in our park. But mostly what's important about what we're doing is community activation. It's creative placemaking. And that's a buzz term for a lot of urban developers. It's if you bring people into the park, they will use it. The anti-social behavior tends to dissipate then if you have active use going on. So our community is coming together weekly in the summer, but also all year long, every month we meet. I put so many hours into this project because I love it, because I live in this neighborhood, because I want to see people on the east of the park using the park. I want to see Martin Drive people, Sherman Park people, and Washington Heights people all getting together because they bring me their stories. They bring our team their exuberant passions, their businesses, their community outreach. And if it wasn't for all of these amazing partners coming together and making this happen, we wouldn't have nearly what we have now, which is a $50,000 budget, up from about a $2,000 budget when it started. And we're growing actively all the time.
That's wonderful. Thank you. So creative placemaking and activating the parks is really key for the success of our park system generally. It's also, as you mentioned, a deterrent for antisocial kinds of behavior. And we know that public safety was identified as an issue in the 2000 report on Washington Park. And that continues to be a concern as it is in cities across the country. Feeling safe is key to engaging in and around the park. What do you think is the best way to address this concern? And what are you hearing from our neighbors?
So to someone's point earlier, I apologize for not remembering who, it is really important to activate spaces. And also the collaborations that we have, not only with the different organizations and residents that come to the table to help to make the park safe, having our police department and our sheriff's department be active and willing to participate has also been an important issue. One of the things that we've worked on through not only our Washington Park Friends, but UMCS has worked with residents to do crime prevention through environmental design walks that are designed to look at the aesthetics, look at the barriers, look at the lighting. These are key components to making an area safe. So one, activeness, so that there are more people in the space that prevents crime, making sure that it's well lit so that people can see where they are, what's happening around them, and so on. Making sure that access points are open and available and there's ways for people to enter and exit safely. So making sure that all of these things are being addressed within our park are key to making sure that it's safe. And then making sure that folks, the perception of safety is key. Someone noted earlier that, people perceive the park as being unsafe simply because of its location, when in fact it has a very low crime rate. So again, working on the perception of what this park is and what it could be for folks is super important.
I totally agree with Adrian, perception versus reality. I think on the UEC side, what we've tried to do is we've tried to regularly meet with law enforcement as well as meeting with parks, patrol, and making sure safety is a concern, not just, for everybody. the community as well as staff and people that use the park. I also believe big in the partnerships that we have, whether it be for events or whether it be for day-to-day activities. It's about activating the spaces. The more eyes that you have doing activities in spaces within the park, the safer it's going to be. You have people that are watching. So we're, as an organization, we're definitely making changes. We're making changes because, one, we want to activate that park even more than what it's been activated. And like, there's simple things that we're doing, like as we meet with the sheriff's department, we meet with county parks patrol. We're also looking at like, how do we create more activities that are self-guided for the community? How do we, prior to, I'll say 15 days ago, we were lending and borrowing out equipment. That's no longer something that the UEC does. That equipment now stays in that park for that community to be able to use on a more regular basis. And so when I talk about equipment, I'm talking about teaching people how to snowshoe, cross-country ski, pedal boats, canoes, kayaks. This is all equipment for the community that'll bring more of the community in to have those experiences, which will hopefully reduce those opportunities for some of those people that have, for some of those people that don't have the best intentions. But then I, like Adrian was saying too, I honestly believe like Washington Park gets a bad rap. You know, and when I hear some things on the news and when crime takes place, when people hear Washington Park, they associate the park with everything that's going on. And even like there was an incident that happened on 174 or 175 on the highway, and it had nothing to do in Washington Park. So I try to make it, we try to, as an organization, we try to make sure that those things get retracted within the news. When they happen, if it didn't happen in Washington Park, then we want to make sure that it's noted in the news that this didn't happen in Washington Park, so that that negativity or that perception doesn't get skewed by anybody that's watching the news.
Great, thank you.
Can I just say one quick thing?
I wish you would.
Washington Park is a microcosm of a macrocosm, and what happens here is just a reflection of what's happening in the entire city. And if we don't build stronger communities, we won't have strong parks. So I feel like it's very important that we lift up our city in all the ways that we possibly can. And we start here with little activations, and it ripples out and it makes communities care more about where they live, and then they will care more about their parks and about their resources, and we work better as a team.
Along those lines, Olmsted had advocated for public parks for all people, where all people could come together in that spirit of community. But we know many feel that they don't belong in the park, or they don't know how to access either the program or self-guided activities. As we think about the future of Washington Park, how can we make Washington Park Milwaukee's Central Park?
This is the question of the day for me as a community organizer, right? Like, even look around this room, right? This is very reflective of what we generally see when there's a planning program, when there's planning happening, when there is ideals that need to be pushed to the front, when folks ask questions about, like, what should we do with this space or what should we welcome here. This is generally what the room looks like. And there's not very many folks that look like myself that are at the table, that have access to this information, that are welcomed into the space to be able to lend like what they want to see be there, right? Or how they think things should go in a particular space. I'd like to say thank you to Melissa and her team for Washington Park Wednesdays, because they have done a great deal of work since I started to see, when I first came to Washington Park Wednesdays, it was very typical of what you might see at any beer garden in Milwaukee, even though you don't have a beer garden. And it wasn't very many BIPOC folks there, very many brown folks. But over the years, her team has really worked to make sure that it has become a very welcoming space for everyone. And with added support from folks like United Methodist Children's Services, UEC, and other partners, we've all together collectively worked to make sure that it becomes a space that's welcoming. For instance, for that is we love having our food trucks there. Families love having them. I bring my family, but if I am a parent that has 3 or 4 children, it becomes cost prohibitive for me to participate. And then I don't want to come to Washington Park Wednesdays because my kids want to eat at the food truck, even if I pack a really cool picnic, right? But if I can't afford to participate in that way, then I'm less likely to bring my kids out to that event because that becomes a hindrance, right? So this year I was elated to see that there was a food truck there that was free for families, and it was real good, high quality food that was being provided, right? So that means that they listened. That means that they took action and they made it a welcoming, accessible space for everyone to come and participate, right? So in the same token, making sure that we create opportunities for feedback from all people that wrap around the park. Not only take that feedback, but take action. Also, culturally appropriate activities, food, and music, right? So all the things that bring people into the park, we should make sure that it is representative of the neighborhood. This is a neighborhood that is super diverse, right? We have a huge Hmong population, a huge refugee population, and outside of the white and the black of it all, right? So we need to make sure that we're reaching out to those different groups and the leaders for those communities and make sure that they know this is a safe and welcoming space for all. Washington Park should be considered the great equalizer in Milwaukee because it's dead smack in the middle of a city of 5 neighborhoods of varying cultures, economic diversities, and backgrounds, and we should make that park reflect that. And lastly, make it accessible for folks, right? We talked about this a couple of times earlier today, that it's just simply difficult physically to enter the park at certain access points. There's 7 different access points. Some are more friendly than others, and I hate to say it, that the side where the brown folks are, it's not worth your life to go to the park, okay, y'all? So those are things that we have to work on. If we're gonna reface Valit and then reface our bike paths on that side, that same money should be raised to do it around the entire park. We should be thinking holistically instead of in parcels.
Thank you, Adrian. She said a lot of what I feel. No, that's great. That leaves me. I only need a little bit of time. I think it's really about like intentionality in everything that we do, and making sure that we're equal in terms of what we bring into the park, the resources that we have in the park, and how we outreach and do our outreach. I've been with Urban Ecology Center about 9 years, and I've been to the Washington Park Wednesdays, and I see the unlimited potential of Washington Park and the community, and like even at we have an autumn celebration, we do Winterfest, and it's that melting pot in Washington Park when you have those events and you have the intentionality behind it that really helps things. I can't stress enough the access. We've been doing a meal program for the last 9 years, summer meal program, and kids are taking a risk trying to cross Lisbon, trying to cross 40th Street. You know, so that's something big that I think could definitely increase the amount of people. With that being said, also we have because the pool is going to eventually open. It is going to eventually open. So how do we get our kids and families safely across 40th Street when this happens? Yeah, I think that's about it on my side.
Thanks.
They said it all, and they said it well. I feel like we always could be learning and growing. We can always be trying to take it one step further. You mentioned the Hmong community, something that we've never really been able to tap into. I've actually had our calendar translated into Hmong, and yet I see very few Hmong families. So that's something we really, really want to succeed at doing better. We're also reaching out in terms of access for more deaf participants, people with physical disabilities. We have a tiny little parking lot. For good reason, we want people to walk and bike and get to the park on foot as much as possible, but that parking lot is for people who can't do that. So we're trying to become more accessible, and we're working together with the county for disabilities, the Office of Disabilities, to address some of these physical, mental, emotional, accessible issues, and we can all be doing more to make that happen.
Thank you. So I do have a few other questions here, but perhaps before I dive into those, I can open it up and see if there's anybody in the audience who has any questions for our panelists. Way in the back, Dr. Keller.
Thank you, Lindsey. So I just wanted to elevate something that you said, Adrian, about, when we try to get stakeholders involved in planning and activating spaces, that oftentimes it looks like this. But one of the things I know about each of your organizations is that you have innovative strategies that you use to try to get beyond that. And I didn't hear you guys talk about that, and I think that to Melissa's point about always learning and growing, I think that would be really helpful. So could you each talk about just one strategy that your organization uses to reach folks that may not be in convenings like this but have a voice, and how you try to reach that voice?
I think one of the strategies we're using right now is we're looking to become a more diverse organization. And so the faces that are at my site need to reflect the faces that are in the Washington Park community. And so that's building collaborations with other agencies, other organizations that are able to help us with providing funding so that we can be a diverse staff that goes out into the community. Because the one thing that kills me every day is it's like there's other cultures that are in Washington Park that aren't getting the same services, same resources, the same opportunities to be part of what UEC offers, to be part of what United Methodist offers, what Washington Park Wednesdays offers, Washington Park Friends of the Parks offers, everybody. And that's something that we're truly looking at on our side, and looking at the Washington Park branch of the Urban Ecology Center, is how our faces look, how diverse our faces look, so that when kids, families come through, they're seeing faces that look like theirs, so that they are more comfortable in saying, hey, I do belong in this space. Because it's a difficult thing to come into meetings every day, or majority of the meetings that you come into, and that I've been in and working for the UEC and doing conferences and things like that, and this is the only face I see that looks like me in these meetings. So I can only imagine when in talking to residents, when residents come through the door. I've had residents that come through the door that have lived over here for 10, 15 years and just felt like they never could come over to Washington Park, and then they find out, oh, I can borrow a fishing pole, a tackle box, I can go do pedal boating. This is for me. It's an eye-opening experience. And so that's what we're trying to get to, is that eye-opening experience for everybody.
I would say for UMCS, we have really tried to push the envelope and be really creative in how we are doing outreach. So of course we do our traditional grassroots door-to-door outreach, but what we've also found to be incredibly effective is doing pop-ups in the neighborhood. So we go to vacant lots all around the community, and we bring partners with us, and we pop up. And at those pop-ups, not only are we providing people with an opportunity to connect to resources that they need, but that is also an amazing opportunity. These are the same folks that will not come to a community meeting. These are the same folks that when I knock on their door, they peep out the window, but they won't open it. So these are the people we really want to hear from, because you normally wouldn't. They will come over, they will talk to us. We have an opportunity to say, hey, did you know about that 175 project? Do you know what's going away? And people are like, what? Do you know about what's happening in Washington Park? Have you ever been to Washington Park Wednesdays? What do you want to see there? So those are great opportunities for us, and we do poll people, we do surveys with them in those spaces. And then again, going back to our Facebook page, which is a baby, it's crawling. It is called What's Good Washington Park. It's a question and a statement, y'all. So we want to know from our residents what is good in Washington Park, and we also want to keep them informed on what's good in Washington Park. So those are the two more innovative, kind of forward-thinking ways on how we are trying to stay engaged with our residents and hear back from them at the same time.
Well, just quickly, we piggyback off of everything that you guys are doing. If it wasn't for our partnerships with these two powerhouses in our neighborhood, we wouldn't be where we are, as well as some public-private partnerships. I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for Allison Nemec and Quorum Architects, a local business in the neighborhood who decided to make an investment and help me reach out to the community beyond our doors, which was predominantly white. And how we get out into the community is we try to break down silos, we try to work with neighbors that maybe aren't necessarily always real excited to do the work. We try to make it easy for them to get involved so that if there's food and there's beverages involved and it can be fun and it can be creative, but it also isn't taxing because people are working hard. They're doing things day to day that maybe I'm not doing and I don't understand what their barriers are. We try to figure out what those barriers are and break them down a little bit better.
I know that I am not on this panel, but I will just add one thing that I think is a theme that runs through all of these strategies, and that is consistency and familiarity. So becoming a familiar face and being a consistent presence in the neighborhood. And I would say it never hurts to extend a personal invitation too. When you have these friendly faces, as you start to build those relationships, to simply say, please join me here, or did you know about this? A lot of times it is simply opening that door that can really help people come through. And Dee Dee?
Ask a question and conclude this so that we can get ready to go on our tours. Adrian, following up on your point about 175, I mean, the Olmsted Network deals with Olmsted parks and landscapes across the country, and Milwaukee is not alone in having a situation where, in the name of urban renewal, an expressway was brought through a park and dividing it and creating all sorts of tragic consequences. We're seeing it in Buffalo, we're seeing it here. And it seems to me, to your point, it's a wonderful opportunity to try to find ways to engage the community. 10% of the park was taken away by that expressway. So the community has an opportunity to take back its park if it engages in this process and helps to reimagine 175. So I just wanted to second and say thank you for that point, because I think there's a real opportunity here to regain Olmsted's Park in the process of rethinking 175.
Great. Thank you. So we do want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to take a break before the walking tour. But before we do, can we give our amazing panelists here a round of applause? And thank you all for the opportunity.